Hey, this is Matt with Let's Talk Music. I'm here with Baby Got Back Talk, G-Raw. How we doing today, man?
Quite well. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thank you for being on. So, when your publicist sent this over to me, I really dug it's like a pop punk feel to it. And your new single is Season Premiere, correct?
That's right.
And tell me a little bit about that.
Sure thing. So, season premiere is the second single off of our Wiretap Records debut, Existential Shred. That's the name of the EP. It's
Mhm.
out to on all streaming platforms on September 9th.
Correct.
We released our first single titled Model Minority in June.
Mm-hmm.
Season premiere, it will be the last single before the whole EP comes out. It's kind of a song talking about the idea of embracing possibility, right? Looking at life as something where, there's a lot of things we don't choose and there's a lot of things we can't control. But the things that we can control, if we're bold enough and persistent enough, we can use to shape our own sort of destiny within a larger story, right? And that made me kind of think about a season premiere in a television show. There's a story that's already being told, but the season premiere is sort of like the sub story, the beginning of a different arc within that story. And that's how me and my bandmates think about life.
Okay. Yeah, and speaking of bandmates, I was looking at your press release. So you got Rihanna Hernandez on synth and Jake on guitars and Wes Ruiz on drums.
Yep.
Um, but it looks like Jake and Rihanna both kick in on the vocals too.
True. One thing we really made a point to sort of incorporate on this particular EP is sort of Bad Religion influenced three-part harmony. So season premiere is a really good example. There's a lot of layered vocals where Jake, Rihanna, and myself are kind of all harmonizing, sometimes doing octaves of one another. And we think it adds an element to the sound that is really exciting.
Yes, yes, it was. And also Jake does a little bit of an unclean vocals towards the end of the song.
Yep. Yep.
That was kind of unexpected because I mean the song is really upbeat. I mean, you're smiling throughout the performance and everything, and then all of a sudden, the unclean vocals. I was like, wow, wasn't expecting that, but I think it adds a pretty cool element to it, especially when you put it at the end like that.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I mean, Jake is a really gifted vocalist. He's a great singer and a great screamer. And we kind of just have a lot of fun in the studio thinking of creative ways to combine all our voices and kind of to your point, to sort of add elements to the songs where you haven't sort of learned the pattern until you've heard the whole thing to keep some amount of unexpectedness to the songs, even though at the end of the day they're pop songs.
Right, right. But I mean, like I said, it was very I think it was very cool at the ending of it. I mean, I think he placed it perfectly. I would feel like if you did it from like right at the beginning or, something like that, people would think it was more of a metal song.
Right.
So, the fact that you just kind of threw it in there at the end was, like I said, it was shocking because, it didn't seem like that's how it would end. And
Right.
also his guitar work I thought was really good too. The different elements to that kind of really shaped the song also. I mean, you guys definitely put together a killer song. So,
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
You're fine. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we sort of, as far as the guitar work, um, we kind of went into this EP thinking about the mix of the different subgenres a lot, right? Jake's really into math rock. We have a sort of common ground in a lot of pop punk and emo bands. I listen to a lot of hardcore, and we just tried to find ways to sort of artfully make references to all of those genres, but in a
Mhm.
way that still feels consistent with our identity as a band.
Right. Now you have what, three other EPs. Take This the Wrong Way. I like that one. Up in Open Arms, and this one too, Genre Reveal Party, which was mixed by Paul Levitt.
Yep.
Okay. So you guys started what back in 2017 or 2020 or 2000, let me see here. I got my notes here. I'm trying.
Oh, all good. It was 17. That's when our first EP came out.
Okay, okay. So like you play I noticed that you guys played a festival not too long ago. How'd that go?
That was awesome. It was kind of one of the last really giant shows that we had an opportunity to play before the pandemic. It was Afropunk Brooklyn Festival 2019.
Right.
And it's hard not to think about the band sort of at this moment as two chapters, right? Like the things we were able to accomplish before kind of losing 2 years of live music, or at least a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then the things that are happening now where we've signed the Wiretap and are trying to sort of kickstart a new era. But that show, that festival was absolutely a high point of the sort of pre-pandemic chapter of the band.
Yeah. So like I also read that like you guys were named one of alternative press or black alternative bands leading the next generation in Afropunk's top 8. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, you guys are getting out there. That's, kind of the main goal. How does your style of music fit in? Because I know New York City is very diverse music wise. How does your music fit in with the Brooklyn area and the music that comes from there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I'm somebody who's moved around a bit and kind of been in bands in a lot of different states in the country. And the New York DIY punk scene is kind of one of a kind in my mind. And so the way we slot in is that I think we have we have a DIY attitude that we share with a lot of punk bands in the scene. Bands like the Loneliers, who we just played with, bands like the 1865, Ma'afa. We share a sort of like aesthetic kinship with them, but I think we also bizarrely have this really pronounced pop streak, right? So we like very much have homie songs in like sweaty clubs and basements and DIY spaces. But in terms of our influences as songwriters, we listen to a lot of One Direction, and that comes through in what we're doing too. So we kind of marry this like very sort of earthy, scuzzy punk sensibility with more of a high gloss pop sound, and
Hmm.
the contrast between the two is a lot of fun.
Awesome. So, man, what got yourself into music?
Hmm. I think when I was quite young, like probably first grade, kindergarten, I remember hearing um, alternative rock radio. So I think like Alanis Morissette, Green Day, believe it or not, Chumbawamba. I think I heard a lot of that stuff and thought like, okay, I understand that this is guitar-based music and this music speaks to me. So at some point I should probably learn how to play the guitar. And I wouldn't get started with guitar until I was in my teens, but that basic moment of like this stuff on alt rock radio speaks to me in some way I can't even necessarily put into words. I think that sensation just stuck with me. And I think even when I sit down and write a song today, to some degree, I'm trying to recreate that feeling of being an elementary school kid who doesn't have any life experiences that cohere with the lyrics,
Hmm.
doesn't know what any of these bands look like. There's just some kind of indescribable quality of the sound that kind of activated me. And even a song like Season Premiere, uh, it's coming from that same place.
Right. So, and now you play bass, correct?
I do. I play both. I write a lot of the guitar parts, but live, I'm the bass player.
Okay. So, like, I'm taking it you're the main songwriter, or is it you and Jake, or I mean, does the whole band kick in? Because I mean, I know a lot of bands. they have the primary lyricist, that says, okay, I write the songs, I sing the songs, whatever. Then you got, people that kick in their ideas or whatever. But, how does it work with your guys' group?
It works a few different ways. Often I'll come in with like a skeleton or a garage band demo that I made on my own, and I'll sort of describe where I think the song could go in terms of what Wes and Rihanna and Jake's contributions are. But other times it can go sort of the opposite. I'll hear Jake or Rihanna play a riff, and I'll say, "Whoa, whoa, what was that? Like, we should build something around that." Jake's a really prolific songwriter individually as well, and sometimes he'll send me a demo that he made, and I'll say, "Oh, let's take this part for the chorus, but I'm gonna write a different verse to that." So it's like a pretty collaborative process, and by the time a Baby Got Back Talk song is on the internet, it's sort of been picked over and revised and refined by everybody in the band.
Okay. So Baby Got Talk Back. How did that come about? That's a unique name. I mean, when I first saw it, I'm thinking Sir Mix-a-Lot, Baby Got Back, and then I seen the talk, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, appreciate that. Well, so the way it worked, I was in a band called Back Talk, and I was playing with some guys in Boston. And it was cool, but we frequently ran into the problem on the internet of there being a lot of bands called Back Talk.
Hmm.
And I ended up moving to New York to start grad school. And it was just me. I didn't bring, any of the guys from my previous band with me. So when I recruited a new band, started playing with Jake and Rihanna, and eventually Wes, we at first there was kind of some overlap between that project and what I had been doing in Boston. But as it began to form a life of its own, we realized we needed to change the name, and also we thought it would be a little bit easier to Google if we became Baby Got Back Talk rather than Back Talk.
Right. Now, you mentioned Wes joining the band later on. That was in what, 2020?
Yep.
Okay. And what kind of element did that bring to it with, having a live drummer?
Well, the funny thing is, I mentioned the New York DIY scene. Wes, in a lot of ways, is a stalwart of that scene. He played in a few of our favorite bands in the area, and we ended up playing a lot of shows where his band was either opening or closing or something like that. And I had told Jake and Rihanna, "Hey, if we can find a way to steal this guy, we absolutely should." So eventually, I think it had to do with the pandemic, but he ended up having a little more time in his schedule. We started playing together and kind of really hit it off. So I think having Wes in the fold um, has brought out the kind of like 2000s emo element of the
Hmm.
band. He's like a real fan of bands like Dan's Gavin Dance and The Used, and those bands have become more prominent reference points in what we're doing. And I think it's been a really useful addition.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, especially if, you guys are referencing those bands because, they're pretty big bands. I've seen actually both of them in concert a couple of times and really
Sweet.
good live bands.
Yeah,
So, you say this is going to be the last single before the album's released. What about shows? You got anything lined up?
we do. We're gonna do an EP release show on October 18th with a band called Tiny Stills, who
Hmm.
we're big fans of. They were at one point on the same label that we're on now. And then we have a couple more things in the works that aren't finalized yet for this fall. But what we've been telling everyone is whatever town you're from, if you're a Baby Got fan and you have any kind of booking connects and you want to bring us to your town, we will absolutely come through. So shoot us an email, reach out on IG, whatever works.
Okay, awesome. Because, yeah, I have a few bands that I've been working with trying to get here in town. We have a local club called the King of Clubs, and
Okay.
it's a very nice venue. I think it holds like 1,500 people.
Sweet.
Acoustics are great. Just all around great venue, and the guys that run it and own it are fantastic people. They're not genre specific. I mean, most of the music that's been in there has been rock or whatever, but I mean, I think they're down for booking whoever. So yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of the owner to try and get something going with some of the bands that I talked to, and that would definitely be something I'd be interested in trying to do for you. So because Columbus is I mean, it's a good rock, it's a metal town, but I mean, it's very diverse in as far as because like we just had like a country fest here that they held at the Horseshoe, the Ohio State Buckeyes Stadium, and
Okay.
it was like sold out. I mean, so and then you got other bands that come through like Corn or somebody like that. They'll play an indoor arena or whatever, and that sells out. So it's there's people of all genres around here, but when it comes down to it, it's pretty much a metal town. So, but yeah, man, that'd be great to get you guys through here because I mean, all the exposure you can get, and pretty much, I love doing live interviews more than I do Zoom, so that would be cool. So
Yeah,
tell
man.
me, so tell me about Wiretap Records, man. How'd that come about?
Well, I think it's sort of like it's sort of like when you meet someone at a bar and you watch them for a long time, but you don't talk to them until maybe close to the end of the night. And once you do start talking to them, you realize they were watching you the rest of the night as well. So we kind of were familiar with some other Wiretap Records bands. I mentioned Tiny Stills, they're awesome. Audio Karate, um, a side project of the Get Up Kids called Radar State. They're on Wiretap as well. And our band had sort of observed and admired the label for years, but we didn't think about approaching them until this latest EP. And it turns out that when we approached them about putting it out, Rob, the CEO, had actually been following our band for a few years. So it was kind of like a really natural and intuitive partnership. And we've been really honored and really excited by the reception to the first couple singles, and also as a bonus, how friendly and generous other bands affiliated with the label have been to us.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, hell, there's got to be hundreds of record labels in, New York City. So, that's pretty cool that you guys are really you feel like you fit in with the other bands and that everybody is being, respectful and whatnot too. Because I mean, there's a lot of these days. There's a lot of littler labels, and that's where I think most people starting out or that have been playing for a little bit get their respect from. You go to a large label, you're just another band. You know what I mean?
Right.
And most of the bands that I have interviewed are independent artists, which a lot of them are like, hey, if the right deal come along, we would take it. But they also like the fact that being independent, that they can release what they want, release when they want. A lot of the people a lot of these bands have been just, pretty happy with it. But I mean, I think it's every musician's ultimate goal to get that big name, be mainstream and whatever. And I mean, it's just like any other, like I was telling a guy last night. I mean, it's a job, it's a profession.
Totally.
So, as you guys get further down the road, it's like you're getting promotions, and raises and whatnot. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I know it's a very tough and competitive business. I'm not really a business. I do this mostly for fun. It just is my love for music. But I mean, if somebody said, "Hey, we like what you're doing, we want to sponsor you," I'd be like, "Hell yeah!"
Right.
That means more equipment, better equipment, whatever. However it wants to work, I would take any kind of sponsorship. But it's for me, it's just a way for me to express my love of music, and it's a way for me actually over this past year, man, has been eye-opening because of all the bands that I have seen and talked to. And it's great. I mean, I love it, and to me it's not. something that I plan on giving up anytime soon. I constantly work on my interviewing tactics. I constantly watch other people that do interviews. I wish there was a way to be more unique, but it's a saturated thing too, just like music. I mean, you can go on YouTube and find, 5,000 people doing interviews.
Right.
So, but it's, I don't, like I said, it's not a competition for me. And I mean, with you guys, it's a little bit more because it costs you a lot more to do what you're doing, to produce and put out EPs and to, excuse me, get on the platforms and whatever. So hats off to you guys, man. I mean, I appreciate, your music. I appreciate what you do, and I think that, it's very admirable of you that have done this for so long and finally got, with a label.
Yeah, man, really appreciate that. Well, I think there's a total parallel between what you're saying about doing your podcast and how we approach music. It's cool to be on a label. It's exciting when other people listen to our music and are invested in it. But I have to acknowledge that even if it was only my mom giving me the thumbs up, I would still be somewhere writing songs and singing them because it's just something I feel a really pronounced calling to do.
Hmm.
My bandmates, fortunately, feel the same way. So there's a kind of satisfaction you get from making music, and I would say also a kind of satisfaction you get in terms of having this solidarity with your bandmates that is sort of bigger than any of the rewards or the notoriety. We like that stuff too, but there's a component of this that is just awesome to have as a part of your life, sort of regardless of the outcome or the listenership.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and the way you talk about your bandmates, I mean, they're all very talented. So, I mean, I think that, the way that the brotherhood that you guys feel, or, with the female sisterhood, um, it's pretty awesome. I mean, that's what it takes, I think, is just you have to be you have to all get along. You have to, be able to keep egos in check and whatever. And I think that, a lot of bands these days, man, they realize that. And I think that's what's going to help people make it further down the road, and it's like, I don't know. I just, like I said, I'm happy to do what I'm doing. I'm happy to talk to people. I have done an interview with a band from India, a band from Poland. It's great. I've got, one coming up with a band in Sweden. And I'm like, I'm going to take it and get up and do it at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday or noon on a Sunday, whatever it takes to do it. So, I mean, that's kind of how you guys talk with your DIY ethic. I mean, it's not very often that people get made by somebody else.
Right.
You got to do your own thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think the example you mentioned, like waking up at doing it at 9 a.m. on a Saturday to accommodate a band from Sweden. One thing we talk about a lot in the band is like if we weren't sort of going out of our way to play rock shows and make records, we would miss out on a lot of really sort of unique and unusual life experiences. And so
Hmm.
even if we weren't super into hanging out with each other and writing songs, which we are, the thing is being in a band is also just a way to kind of inject some novelty and excitement into your day to day. And I think about that with that example, right? To talk to a band from Sweden who has a totally different cultural context, but to still be able to connect through music, even though you might not have a whole lot else in common. I think that's one of the most exciting things about being involved with music is just this chance to get outside of your comfort zone and see more of the world and connect with people who you might not encounter by any other method.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what you're saying is, what I've called it for years is a universal language.
Yeah.
You can connect with people in so many ways through music. Whether it's, feelings that music causes, or oh man, I heard this one guitar riff and thought it was really cool, and you know now I'm playing it or whatever. I mean, there's so many different ways that music can influence people and make people bring them together. I honestly feel like if more people worried about or I'm sorry, more people worried less about daily life stresses, um, race, gender, religion, whatever, and just focused on the unity that music is able to cause, then this world will be a lot better place.
I'm right there with you. I mean, it's something, it's kind of part of what sucks you in. You go to a show and there's something about a really magnetic performance um, that really sort of dramatizes what you're describing, that universal language phenomenon. And I think when you experience that as a spectator, if you have any sort of artistic impulse, then you go, man, if there's some way I can contribute to that force, right? If there's some way that I can get involved beyond just watching, then that would be the coolest thing. And I think one of the most rewarding things about being involved with music so far is just to to sort of get to be on the other side of that, right? There's so many bands that were instrumental for me as a young person, and even now, where I go to their shows and I feel that sense of unity, I feel that sense of kind of invigoration to be in community with people who are all kind of excited about the same thing,
Right.
and to now play a different role, right? To be able to provide that for people as a performer is so gratifying and uh something I aspired to for like a really long time. So hopefully that's something we can continue to do and maybe do, even on a larger scale.
Right. So, I mean, like for me, I feel like on your side of things, as a musician, one of the most rewarding feelings I could think of is when you're up on stage and you're playing, whatever song it is, or what you're doing, and the crowd, the reaction of the crowd, people out there dancing and having fun, and singing the song back to you. I mean, that because I remember going to a Linkin Park concert, and it was so loud they was doing In the End, and the crowd was singing so loud that the band just kind of quit for a second, and I mean the
Yeah.
smiles on their faces, I mean that excited me too. I'm like, man, these are, five guys, six guys that have, worked their tails off to put this stuff together, and now that's got to be the ultimate gratification.
Yeah, that's a great moment from that concert. Like, I mean, I wonder how many people even think about what you're saying, right? Like when we're in the audience, we are so often thinking about what the band is giving us. I wonder if people are conscious like you were in that moment of how it must feel for the band to kind of close the loop, right? To feel it sort of come back to them. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's the magic of the creative process. Like people, it's so funny because the divisions that we have as human beings, which you alluded to, can
Hmm.
feel like they're totally unnavigable. But there's something about a rock song that can just make it seem like everybody in the room is on the same team.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's like that's the perfect example. That's what's great about music, man. I know wasn't long ago. I went and seen the band Tesla. I have been trying to see them since like the early '90s, and always something came up. I finally got to go, and I remember they were getting ready to play Love Song, and I just like I got goosebumps all over me. I smiled bigger than crap. And like after they were done, this guy taps me on the arm. He's like, "Hey man," he says, "that was awesome to see." I said, "What?" He said, "Just the smile on your face the entire time that that song was playing and you sing along with it." He says, "I can tell that you really love this band." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, but it somebody else did feel that same way. They acknowledged that, hey, I saw the way you feel." So
Right.
it is. I think a lot of you know, there's kind of a excitement and kind of a just a pure satisfaction of going to see a band that you've liked or that you're into or whatever. And I feel like the audience, most of the audience is into that same feeling. I feel like maybe you got you guys that are there that are, you know, drunker than a monkey, or that are they're mosh pitting or whatever. But for the most part, I think everybody's there for the same reason. They want to see their band play, and they get a mutual feeling from that. So I mean, as a spectator, I mean, you said you've been a spectator quite a few times too. I mean, if you look around you, you can see it.
Totally. I had a similar moment. You might know the band Jawbreaker. They were kind of a legendary punk band in their
Hmm.
time, but they were broke up for 20 years or something like that. But I saw them in April. Uh and they were a band that, by the time I even got interested in them, they'd been broken up a long time. So I think they broke up when I was in like third grade. So I say that to say my entire listening relationship with them, I assumed I would never get to see them live.
Hmm.
Them reuniting, and they were reuniting sort of in the to celebrate, I want to say the 20th anniversary of their album Dear You.
Hmm.
Like, just seeing all the punks like roughly my age and older, right? Because I think the dudes in Jawbreaker are in their 50s. Uh, just like really taking in how legendary it was to see this once forgotten trio reunite. It was like a different level of that same feeling you're talking about, because I think a lot of us felt like this was a band we would never see. And then the unthinkable happens and they get back together. And the only people who would come to a show like that are people who've like obsessed over their records while they were dormant. And I went there with a couple of my bandmates, and it was really encouraging for us, really inspiring for us to see like the power of fandom, right?
Hmm.
Because this band is really only reforming because people have stayed interested.
Right.
And these people in this room still caring about these songs, still being gratified by this music, was a strong enough incentive for the band members to kind of get past the issues they had
Hmm.
in order to be able to deliver this again. And we really took that in. Baby Got Back Talk, that is. And we thought there was a lesson in it for us.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, I mean, you gotta kind of point, as the band Jawbreaker, you kind of them guys, they gotta kind of look at it as, okay, here we are, this far along down the road, we haven't played in years, and all these people showed up to our show. Your music has a certain longevity to it that, that in itself is impressive. I mean,
Right.
because there's been so many one hit wonders, or there's been so many songs that, hit the pop charts and or the rock charts or whatever charts, and they just literally play the crap out of it. And after a while, you're like, man, really this song again, So, I mean, when you have that longevity, like, bands like, Pink Floyd, or, Boston, or, anybody that, you hear their song and you're like, man, I remember when that came out in like 1980 or whatever. I mean, that's a pretty impressive feat, especially as, the band that did it.
Totally. And timelessness, I mean, it's always something to aspire to, but it kind of feels like maybe because of the internet, people are sort of more sensitive to whether or not a piece of media feels like it holds up over time.
Hmm.
And I think, yeah, exactly like you're saying, bands that resonated with people 40 years ago still having that hold uh, is amazing. And, you know, a feat I would love to take a shot at.
Right. Okay, man. Well, I appreciate you being on. I enjoyed our talk very much. I love talking to people that are, you know, very motivated by music, that love music. And that this is one of the biggest reasons I do this, because it's like I can't talk. My wife was the one that suggested that, I start a blog or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna start this and start that. And so but it was the fact that I talked to her about music, and she's like, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not into music like you. Like, I mean, I can remember bands, band members' names, and just a bunch of stuff that sticks with me, that my brain's like a sponge when it comes to music. So it's really nice to talk to other people that are like that. So
Likewise, man. I really appreciate you having me on, and thanks so much for supporting the band.
no problem, sir. And like I said, I will. I'm working on trying to get some bands here in Columbus. So I'll keep in touch if I hear anything.
Yeah, we'd love to come to Columbus. I actually live in St. Louis now, and I commute to work with the band in New York. So Columbus would kind of be closer to me anyway.
Right, right. All right. Well, you have a well, let's see, we're still in the afternoon. You have a good afternoon, and I look forward to hearing some new music from you.
Thanks. Take care.
You too.